You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening and welcome to Saturday evening's pop-up paranormal show. My name is Kerry Greenaway and tonight I am joined in the studio by the lovely Rooney. Good evening, Kaz.
Good evening, Kerry.
Good evening. And how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So we thought we'd do a little pop-up show for you guys on this Saturday night, and we thought we'd ruffle some feathers, maybe not. We're going to talk about the differences and does it matter if there is a male, female in the paranormal field? Is there a gender difference in the paranormal field? That's what we're going to talk about tonight.
And it was all Kerry's idea.
She passes the buck already. So that is the question on the table tonight. Is there a difference between male and female paranormal investigators? So what do you think about this, Kaz, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it? Do you actually think there is a difference?
I would say slightly, yeah. You do have to admit, now I know there's going to be men listening to this and going, no, that's not true. But the guys love the techie stuff. The guys do love the techie stuff more than the women. That is one thing I have noticed. The guys absolutely love all the techie stuff. They're the ones who'll go and they'll find out about computer systems and blah, 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 and blah, blah. And they would have stuff all over the place, a lot of the guys that I know. So, there is a bit of a difference. To me.
I think there's a difference too. I'm going to put that out there. I do think there is a difference.
Yeah, there is.
I think there's quite a big difference.
Yeah, the guys like
even in this day and age.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. Which is surprising when you think about it.
Okay, well, I looked into this because I like to back up what I say.
Yes, okay? I know you do.
I do like to back up what I say. And this was actually more on technique than it was in general. And the question was, do you think ghost hunting techniques vary depending on the investigators, whether they are male or female? 57.7% of people said yes, there was. This was on a survey of 150 people, by the way. And 42.3% said no.
Okay.
So the majority, although it was a small majority, actually do think there is a difference in techniques between paranormal investigators or ghost hunters in technique.
I think there is, though. I mean, see, it sounds really cliched, but they say that women are the gentler sex. And women do go in a bit more easy than maybe men would. Men might be a bit more hard going when they go into somewhere, especially if it's somewhere that they've been told is quite dark or powerful, something in there, they'll go in quite hard on it. I don't think women do that as much.
No, I mean, if you're going into a location that's, like got a darker energy to it, then yes, I do think the hello, is anybody there kind of approach doesn't really work. I think it does take a more hard-hitting approach. I mean, we've been to army bases or RAF bases before now, and they definitely, the energy, spirit, entity, whatever you want to call it, definitely seems to respond better to a male voice than it did to a female voice, depending on the circumstance. When we was out on the air strip, it definitely responded more to that male, come on boys, we're doing this for the country, and shouting orders and stuff like that. Definitely responded more to that. Whereas when we was in the mess hall, it responded more to a female voice, which is more understandable, I suppose. My dog's having a wander. Going to have to settle him down. Now, I did look into this a little. Lay down. Come on. Sorry, all of a sudden he's gone all mad. Now, I think, like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's a well-known book that's out there. And men seem to think in straight lines. They like to solve problems. So when women are, like, rattling off their issues on a day-to-day basis, they look to solve the problem rather than just listening and being sympathetic. Whereas you'll get more of that from your girly mates than you would from a male friend. So men seem to think in more straight lines, whereas girls are more nurturing and more emotional and more, oh, don't worry, and talk through your problems more, So women, I think, are a little bit more sensitive emotionally than men. Men are always trying to find the reasons why something works. There's, let's solve this problem. It's a problem to be solved rather than a transitional problem that just needs a sympathetic ear, as it were. So does that translate into the paranormal field?
I think it does. I actually have a good example of this. There is a particular tunnel in Sheffield, and I went there in February with 2 male investigators. And they were all kind of gung-ho because apparently there was a little boy who died in that tunnel. He was 10 years old. But they kind of went in with the person who had killed the little boy apparently killed themselves as well in the tunnel. So they went in gung-ho, wanting to make contact with this man who had killed this little boy. And they were quite aggressive. Whereas I was going in a lot gentler because I wanted to make contact with the little boy. And what ended up actually happening was, I did eventually get contact with the little boy. It took quite a bit of time. I did get it, but whenever the men spoke, the little boy wouldn't respond because they were too aggressive. But he would respond to me. But they went in there gung-ho. Their whole issue was they wanted to contact the man who had created that situation to start with. So they went in there quite aggressively.
I do think there is a lot of that. I mean, I do think children spirits would respond better to women. I know that's quite a controversial comment. But I think that's probably more likely that a child would respond more to a female than a male.
But then again, if you think about it, Kerry, you've got male mediums, you have male investigators who are also empaths.
Very true.
And they're sensitives. And they do work empathically. So that doesn't really play out for them, does it?
No, I mean, I have not had the pleasure of working with a male medium, I suppose, in the field. No, that's not quite true. I have worked with one male medium, but he was a masculine male, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was a different energy signature is where I would go with that. If I was working with, I don't know, a more sensitive male energy signature, it'd be interesting to see how that worked out. I don't know. Now, again, I looked into this regarding belief systems, because I think that's quite a huge part of it, belief system. Men and women hold their view of the paranormal phenomenon. This was a study done by an Indiana university in 2013, and it indicated that there was no significant difference in paranormal belief.
Okay.
So in regards to belief systems, there didn't seem to be much difference between male or female. So it's kind of like a level playing field. So this was in 2013. Yet I found another study that said that men's beliefs tend to be more in ufology, cryptozoology, demonology. They're more likely to pursue it and see it as a sense of discovery. They're searching for proof. They want that data. They want that evidence, as it were. Whereas women's beliefs tended to be more in the psychic powers, astrology, mediumistic approaches, empathic approaches, and they came at it from a personal discovery and enlightenment kind of way. They were out there trying to understand their relationship to others and the spirit world. So it was a very, very different approach. Although their belief system started from the same point, their belief sort of filtered down into two very, very different categories.
Yeah. What I can actually say is when it comes to skeptics, I've came across far more male skeptics than I have females.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's down to just not wanting to believe or just blocking things out, I don't know. But I find that men can be a lot more sceptical than females will do. But it's, like you said, it's how the different genders are looking at it. Do you know what I mean? And where they're coming from when they go into it. Really. And why you're doing it in the first place. I think.
So do you think it's important then to have a balance between male and female when you're investigating, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
I think as long as you're investigating for the right reasons, it shouldn't matter. But yeah, it is nice to have a balance of male and female, I suppose, but if you're investigating for the right reasons, I don't think it should matter. It shouldn't matter if it's all girls or all men. It's why they're actually doing it for me. It's why they're actually investigating in the first place.
So if we go on the basis that men are more technique-based and tech-based, does that discount then a lot of the other side that ladies could perhaps bring to the room?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think that's right at all?
No. Because like I said, I've worked with men who are empathic and sensitive. And basically would work along the same lines that I would. And then again, I've worked with women who have been slightly more aggressive.
Is your phone buzzing? It's fine. Just put that out there. Now, Richard, we have Richard in the chat room. He said that men and women are different biologically anyway, and there's no reason why differences in approach would be normal and in a way predictable. And that women were more accepting of the whole patchwork of the paranormal, whereas men tend to break it down into more individual aspects, which was actually backed up in the study that I found. Now, the biological differences between men and women are actually quite profound. I was actually quite surprised by this. Now, men, this is related to in general intelligence, they have 6.5 times more brain grey matter than women in regard to general intelligence than women.
Really?
Apparently so. However,
What?
women have 10 times more brain white matter related to intelligence than men.
Okay.
Okay? Men have larger brains than women, which surprised me. However, they shrink quicker as old age sets in. Just putting that one out there, lads.
Okay. That explains.
Explains quite a bit. Women's brains operate on a higher temperature than men's. And men use their left side of the brain for communication, whereas women use both sides for communication and have more connectiveness between the two halves of their brain.
Which is why women can multitask.
Exactly. Women can multitask better than men, and I'm so sorry, lads, but that is a true fact.
It is a true fact. You can't get away from it.
Men try,
You
but
just
fail.
can't get away from it.
But fail, bless them. I'm not dissing men at all. I am seriously not dissing men, but there are different. These are the biological differences. These are proven physiological facts. Women have more developed limbic systems, which are primarily responsible for our emotional life and our formation of our memory.
Okay.
And men have a smaller limbic system and seem to not value intimate conversations as much because of this.
I would say that's true.
Okay.
I could believe that.
It seems that evolution has seemed to create two different types of brain for equally intelligent behaviour.
That's quite interesting, really, isn't it?
It surprised me. And also, women have more rods and cones in their eye, which allows them to see more detail. I didn't know that either until tonight.
No, so you've just told me.
And this is so well, I say this is so. This is because we end up seeing more detail. So we see things like dust. Men don't.
No, hang on, Kerry. You're just giving every man who is listening to this an excuse why he doesn't do housework.
I know this. I know what I've just said, but this is a proven fact that women have more rods and cones in their eyes, which allows women to see things in more detail, which does mean one of the examples was used. It was used that that's why men don't see dirt and women do. That's what in this study, in this Indiana University study that I found, that is a true physiological fact. So I'm so sorry, ladies. I'm so sorry. You do actually have to point things out to men for them to then go, oh yeah, it's thick with dust, isn't it?
Well, did they put a footnote at the bottom of the study saying that all men should wear glasses then?
No, they didn't do that. It excused them from multitasking on this study, and it basically excused them from seeing any dust or dirt that's flying around. I was a bit like, oh, okay. So there is a difference physiologically, between men and women. So how does that translate into the paranormal field? Do we notice more details? Are we picking up on more energy levels?
I think maybe from a sensitive side, yeah, we would. But that would explain, if you looking at that study, that would explain why the men like the techie side more.
It certainly does.
But I have worked with men who are quite sensitive and empathic, so it's quite... I think it depends on the individual investigator, really, and how they work.
I think it does. There is going to be a crossover, obviously, between... I mean, we're talking very generally. We're talking very stereotypically. But these physiological differences between men and women are proven scientific facts. I've not made these up. This is a scientific fact. These are the differences between men and women. Oh, honest to God. I was like, seriously?
Can I ask a question, though?
Uh-huh.
Was it a man or a woman who did the study?
Believe it or not, it was men.
Oh, what a surprise!
But these are, physiological differences. So, it does show a completely different way of looking at things.
Yeah, it does, actually.
So, regardless of whether or not you're empathic or mediumistically or sensitive or psychic or whatever label you wish to class yourself as, it doesn't change the fact that if you are a man, your brain will operate in a specific way, and if you are a woman, your brain will operate in another way. Although you might be leveled intelligence, it does kind of work in very, very different ways, purely through evolution.
Well, I mean, looking at it that way, I mean, I suppose it would really need to, wouldn't it? Because when you think about it, I mean, this is going way off track, but the women have the babies and whatever. We're born nurturers. Men are born workers, aren't they? Really? Yeah. So that's probably because of the difference in our brains. It's the way we're programmed to be.
But that goes back to instinctual wise, isn't it? That goes back to, there's probably a really posh word for it that I don't know, but it goes back to like base instinct, like tribe instinct, doesn't it?
Yes, I suppose it does. But like you're saying, our brains are made completely different. So I actually had a discussion quite a while ago on my own group, and it actually got quite heated about genetics and whether or not there is a genetic link between people having gifts in a family. And it turned into this whole heated discussion about men and women and differences and whatnot, and how it couldn't genetically be passed on. But I don't believe that's actually true. I believe that we may work slightly differently, but you're going to have, like you said, there's going to be this crossover between women who are more aggressive when they investigate. You're going to have men who are more empathic when they investigate, and it's not going to. It might be something you're just born with. It might just be the way you're born. I don't think it's something that's learned. I think it's something that you're just born with.
See, now I slightly differ from that. I think that you can learn. I think everyone's got that capability.
Yeah.
It'll manifest in different ways, possibly.
Yeah.
You'll find a way that works for you and not necessarily for somebody else. But everybody's got that ability within them on some level or other.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it. I mean, God, if you got grown up with my family, I would not be doing what I do today. I mean, they're the most sarcastic bunch of people I've ever come across in my life. I love my family dearly, but they are very, very based in the present, and they don't believe in psychics, they don't believe in mediums, they don't believe in spirits. They don't. There's no room in their mind for that at all. So I was brought up in a very prosaic way, a very educated. They're very educated people. They're very intelligent people, but they're not paranormal or psychic, mediumistic, whatever way you want to class it at all. I mean, they think I'm a bit of a weirdo of the family for what I do. I don't care, but that's what they think. They always talk to me about it, but it's they back their arguments up with like facts and figures and statistics and stuff like that. Whereas I'll go down the alien overlords route just to wind them up. But that's the sarcasm that lives in my family. But do you see what I mean? So from that perspective, I would never have gone down this route if it wasn't for my own feelings and emotions and things like that. So belief system within a family doesn't necessarily come into play. But then again, I am an incredibly strong-willed person, so that plays a part too. So sociologically, belief systems within your social networking system I suppose. Would that have an effect more than the male-female gender role, do you feel?
Well, I mean, most of my friends, I mean, when I've been growing up and the way I was raised up a Roman Catholic. And what we did is we did our first Holy Communion, we did our confirmation, I did all of that. And the people I mixed with were all really good Catholics, but it didn't deter me from my belief. And that's a belief that I've had since I was really young. So I can't say sociologically the people around me affected me, but I can say as I've got older, on a social level, I will be more inclined to associate myself with people who have the same beliefs as me. But growing up, it didn't affect me. It didn't change my viewpoint. So...
Is that because we live in a Western world, though, and we are actually more able to accept different mindsets and different, you know, we actually live in a very multicultural, multi-religious acceptance world where we live in the West. I mean, if we lived somewhere different, like, for example, the Middle East, we would have a lot more controlled mindset.
Well, in saying that, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but like I said, when I was growing up, the way things worked when I was growing up is very different from the way growing up now. I mean, like I said, my mum and dad brought us up Roman Catholic. Now, the attitude is what your parents tell you you're going to believe and you're going to follow, and you don't disagree with your parents. And though I never made an outward appearance of disagreeing with my parents, I did have discussions with my mum and with my dad, and they always knew I had this interest from a really early age in the paranormal. And my dad was forever telling me that it wasn't real and spirits aren't real and all this. And so, I mean, it was very different then. Now it's more, I can see it's more acceptable. I mean, my children, I have 5 kids ranging from 24 to 14 years old. And I have never, ever tried to encourage them to follow a certain religion. I have always kind of let them find their own way, because I felt that when I was young, when I was getting raised up, I had to go to church and I had to do this and I had to do that because that's what your parents told you to do. But I didn't necessarily believe in it. So it's all very different now from when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. It's very different.
Mm-hmm. Kerry Ann, are you with us?
I am. Hello.
Good evening, Kerry Ann, and how are you?
I know. I'm absolutely fan-dabby-dozy.
Have you been listening to the show so far?
I have. I've been having problems with my internet and my connection, so that's why I've not been able to get on with you guys until now. So I've been in and out, but I know that we're talking about the male and female in regards to being susceptible to spirit and paranormal investigations. Am I right?
Yeah. We're looking at the differences basically between male and female investigations and whether or not it does make a difference or not, basically.
Well, I mean, I've had this conversation. I was listening to Kaz and the things she was saying as well, and I find it really interesting about people's background and the kind of influence that would have on a person and their upbringing and their belief system, and how sometimes people can go on to different pathways. I find that really interesting anyway. But in regards to the male and female, now I know more male mediums than I do female mediums. Mm-hmm. And I had this conversation with Alison Dunlop, and we were also talking to another guy as well. And I actually asked this question on my paranormal profile, and a lot of people did come back with the same thing, that, you know, we did know more male mediums than we do female mediums, but they tend to be, I could be wrong because I hate stereotyping and putting people in pigeonholes, but they tend to be in the care profession, and they tend to be the more empathic and kind of compassionate type of person, like male energy. So I do feel like it takes a certain type of man to be a medium, or to be more susceptible. But then I find that different when it comes to the paranormal. I find that within the paranormal, we got you know your burly men like Paul Rook, who are more, let's get the tools out. Who's got the bigger one? My EMF's bigger than your EMF. My aerial touches the sky. So, you know, it is this really kind of a grey area for me, because in one instance, I want to say women are more susceptible to a spiritual energy, but then in the same breath, can you really take out, and I get this is relating to a conversation that I was having with David Sunderland, can you really take out the spiritual belief out of a paranormal investigation? So the burly men like Paul Rook, who does the paranormal, are they still working under some type of spiritual belief? And are they susceptible to the fact that they believe that there isn't one? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I just kind of come in on a wrecking ball, haven't I? Sorry.
Well, we've looked at various aspects of this. We were actually looking at the sociological aspects of how you're brought up in regards to a belief system, and we were saying that in the West we're brought up with a lot more multicultural, religious aspects. You know, we're given access to a lot more varied belief systems than maybe somewhere else in the world is brought up, you know, and whether or not that would be an effect. I mean, we were talking about the Middle East, and women are very put into the woman role, and they're not allowed to educate themselves. They're not allowed to do this in some cultures abroad. Do you know what I mean? So whether or not that had an effect on then breaking free from that, then going forward, whether or not that actually had an effect between the male-female gender role.
We say this, right? But if you take it straight back to the Victorian era and you look at what the male and female role played in that era, now women that was more female people that would become mediums, because they were believed to be closer to that presence and godlier.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So with that being said, this also really, I mean, it's pivotal when you think about the women, the movement of equal rights, because it kind of really did stem from this point. It really did bring things to the table for us women to have more of an equal, I think, say somewhat in that era. It began with the spiritual movement. It's associated with that and how they started to become more of the forefront because of the mediumship. So I agree that, because of society, what depending on what type of society someone lives in would be more dependent on, what that person has access to. But if you look at a individual society, some see, just like how some see different animals as being sacred where others don't, women have different roles within that society, and that might mean that they are seen to be more kind of, saintly, closer to God, spiritual than men. Mother Teresa, the society that she lived in, women weren't going out on a limb here, ladies, so back me up. It's more predominantly men.
True.
Yeah. See, high five, ladies.
That's all the ladies in the house.
That's it.
It is a little biased to the female side of things tonight, I feel.
It's all right. We've only got Richard in the chat room at the moment. So
and Carl, we've got
Carl, yes, we have. So them two, I'm sure Carl's because again, I'm going back, with Carl, it's the equipment side of things. I would like to put that to him, actually, Carl, in the chat room. So do you feel that, have you a belief in the spiritual, or do you have like a spiritual belief within your paranormal research, or do you do you believe that there isn't one? And does believing that there isn't one still kind of play a part in your research? So does it still have like a kind of a pivotal effect on it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, because he's looking for that proof, that evidence, that backup, that data, whereas women are more, I sense, so I believe.
Yeah, and we do get men that do that.
We do.
Does Carl? But I don't know if Carl does believe this, but it does a man who hasn't got a spiritual belief, does the lack of that spiritual belief still play a part in his research? So therefore, it's still a part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course
that.
It does. Well, we'll have to wait for a response in the chat room because you've thrown that out to the men in the chat room. So I have another question for you, ladies. Okay. Ladies in the house. Do you feel that there are challenges in paranormal investigations that relate to gender?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Apart from the obvious of the toilet situation.
Well, you know what? I'm going to put it this way. How many female paranormal investigators do you have on TV? Female investigators, pivotal, investigators, not like a psychic that does the research or the intuitive, the female paranormal researcher.
Okay, we're going to cover that in a second. That was my next question.
That's my answer. That's my answer to that. That's like, yes, of course there is. There is so many, like any other structure within society, there is gender restrictions for female. I don't think that they're taken seriously within our movement, within the movement, because we've got the JJs.
Okay, so do you think that men belittle women for using their feelings and their intuition and their psychic sides, whereas men rely on equipment more? So do you think they belittle women? I don't mean that too harshly. Do you think that they take, because they're relying on tech to back up their findings, whereas women will go more with their feelings and stuff? Do you think that that is discounted more because of that?
Yeah, it is a little bit. I feel it definitely is.
I think we're pigeonholing here a little bit, so I'm really being careful. I've never had my head patted and went, there, well done, nice try, but let's go to the OK too. I've never had that. But I do think that if someone's going in and wants paranormal research done scientifically, they're going to rely on their equipment and not so much the little Miss Medium that's sitting in the corner talking about the man that she's seeing subjectively and not something they can measure objectively. So I think that that's an issue. I don't think that's a male gender kind of female situation. I think it's dependent on how that person wants to do research. But what do you think, Kerry?
I'm the same as you. I have never had someone, like you say, pat me on the head and say, good try, girl. Wrong, because it's not backed up by equipment. I've always had, okay, that's fine, we'll go with that feeling, let's see if we can get anything verified by equipment. But they've never discounted what I'm feeling in the field.
No.
Because of that.
But I do think that can happen. But I don't think, like with Kaz was saying, yeah, it has happened. I agree with Kaz that it does happen. But is that because that's a woman using their intuition, or is that because they just don't want mediumship as a form of evidence because it is subjective and can't be observed and measured? We've got to be careful. We don't want to throw out, is it because I'm a woman?
That's true. No, I agree with that point too. Kaz, what's your feelings on this subject?
Well, I mean, I actually feel, I've been in situations where everything's equal. Like I've said, every man I've ever worked with, really, they do tend to rely on the techie stuff. They do like the techie stuff. I've only ever had one situation where I've said something felt wrong and we shouldn't go any further, and I kept getting told, no, it's fine, and it was just completely discounted. We kept going ahead. After about 10 minutes, this particular investigator went to look at what I was saying and came running back and said to us, turn back, we're going the wrong way. And I said, I've been telling you that for the past 10 minutes. But because I was sensing we were going in the wrong direction, it was discounted. Because to prove that, he wanted to just steamroll ahead. And when he did actually find out we were going the wrong way, he went, oh, maybe we should have listened to Kaz 10 minutes ago. And I thought, yeah, well, that would have been good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do understand that intuition can be sometimes passed off as something other than that, and just, you know, an anxious sensation.
Yeah.
I agree there, Kaz.
Yeah.
But I would think that would happen with your male or female. So if a male was saying, no, I think we should go this way, and a woman could be like, no, I think we should go this way because this is where activity is supposed to happen, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean?
We do need to acknowledge this is the old, you know, should we ask for directions? No! I know the way there.
I admit fully that I am absolutely awful with geography, so I have to go on feelings only. Do you think then, going on, that men see the need to protect women in the paranormal field? So there is that level of protection, because men do kind of get quite protective over women.
Where are these men? Where are these men? I've never been protected in an investigation. In fact, I remember being barged once as they were trying to run away past me. No.
I also remember you doing that to another female too.
No, I picked her up and threw her at
That's
what was that. Look at Danny Lee with the badger. I actually picked him up and tried to use him. He didn't protect me. I was protecting myself with him. But he weren't interested. He was trying to fight for his life against me.
Having said that, though, to be fair, no disrespect to Danny Lee.
He was like half of me.
You know. So are we going on more? It's about personality rather than... Because, Kerry Ann, you're very, very strong as a girl. You're very, very strong as a female. You know your mind. You know how you work. You know where you're going. You know what you're doing regards to tech and the spiritual side of things. You're very, very strong. So you've never encountered really any issue regarding male-female, have you?
Not really. I've got a very strong masculine energy, and I'm the type of person to could take control of a situation, which doesn't always go in my favour. But I am a fixer. So I have that about me, which again is a trait and a kind of that you associate within a personality of a male and not a female. So no, I haven't. I've never been the damsel in distress. I'll be honest with you. I'm usually the one that's kind of protecting people. But then the same for you, Kel. I've never seen you be in a position where you was a bit of a damsel in distress as such. So what do you think? Have you ever been in a position where you felt like you needed to be protected? And after, Kaz, I asked you the same thing.
Personally, me, no. But like I'm the same as you. I'm very strong-minded, very strong-willed. And regardless of what's coming at me, I'm very much like you, aren't I? You know, yeah. I'll face it head on. Kaz?
No, I don't ever feel I've had to be protected or, been in a situation where they've tried to protect me. I've been in a situation where the men have, two men have turned around and said, maybe you shouldn't go in there alone, but I've still went ahead and done it. It didn't stop me from doing it.
Yeah, because they're badass.
I find a lot of women in the paranormal field can be very badass.
I think it's English coming out.
Oh my god. So do you think, right, when you get some form of and I use the term very loosely, evidence, whether you get an EVP or whether or not you get some video footage or whatever, if you then put that out to your peers, like the men in the field, do you think that they are more willing to give up their findings to prove them right or wrong? Do you think women are more willing to do that than men?
Can you explain that? Sorry.
So if you was out in the field with just purely female investigators and you caught something,
yeah,
do you think women are more willing to share that with the community, the male peer group out there? Because when you look at it regards to skepticism and debunking and those kind of things, they do tend to be more male.
I see. I don't know. See, I find that I will never go straight to the paranormal first and try and look at, and then you do as well. Me and you have spent plenty of times around the table, rearing a piece of evidence between us.
This is
so
true.
I think
we don't put it up to peer pressure. We argue it out between ourselves.
Yeah. But I mean, going to the chat room, because we've got quite. I mean, we asked Carl a question. Bless him. You really did put him in a spot there, Kerry. Putting it out there like that.
No, that was you, I think.
No. He definitely says Kerry, not Seventh Sanctum. So I'm gonna throw that one to you. He says,
and so it begins.
We asked Carl, how did he feel about working within the paranormal, and if he believed that there should be a spirit, or there is a spiritual belief, and if not, is the removing of spiritual belief still has its part to play? So he says, me personally, I have both sides. I have the spiritual side as well as the science side. And when it comes to the paranormal, I use both sides, and I don't think it matters if you are male or female. Everyone has their different ways of doing things, which is good and can help an investigation when it comes to equipment. It's how your mind and knowledge works, which is a very good point. It says, I've worked with some amazing female paranormal investigators. You haven't worked with me yet, Carl. And then put it out there, Carl. One day we will. And Richard Clement says, approaching the paranormal from a spiritual perspective takes a belief in a spiritual perspective in the first place. I think a lot of men feel a spiritual approach may be too closely associated to religion, i.e. God, angels, etc., which a lot of men would shy away from or not want to be associated with. Carl Hutchinson's also said, from when we were talking about evidence is evidence no matter who captures it. It's a very good point. I think really the kind of census is, that was a big hint. That was very subtle, actually.
For us, that was subtle.
That was subtle. When we turn up outside your house and we're beeping, that's the big hint. We ain't there yet. We will be, but we're not there yet. And I think the general census is that you can get, it comes in many forms. What we do, it comes in many forms, both male and female. And I think it's more down to personality than gender. I think the thing is as well, we live in such a fluid society where people can identify as many different things these days, many different types these days, you know. So it's very difficult to kind of pigeonhole now. Whereas before, when we lived in a society where we all had like very solid roles, it was easy for us to identify people's place in society. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So I have another question for you girlies.
Go on in.
TV roles. Does TV show men as fearless and leaders and women in support roles, i.e. like more weak and needing that protection and stuff like that? So the TV shows we watch on paranormal investigations, how do you feel they're portraying women in the paranormal investigation field? And we're not including Most Haunted in this because we all know what we feel about that one.
Yeah, we're not including that. Well, when you look at Katrina, you look at Amy, you look at... They're all pretty strong women. They are very strong women. They know what they're doing. So I don't think they're portrayed any different from the men, really. Because they're all very strong women in their own right. I mean, look at them. And look at what they're doing.
That's true. I mean, I tend to not kind of watch much. As you know, I don't really watch TV. But I do think that it is more male orientated in the TV world, as it were. And they are portrayed as more masculine and fearless and, you know, doing things. I mean, how many ratio to female male presenters are there on these TV programs. I think you'll find it's more male heavy.
Yeah, it may be more male heavy, but I mean, I've seen Nick Groff screaming more than I've seen Katrina screaming. So there are more
Ghost
male
Adventures, though, there's not a woman to be seen.
Yeah, true.
Look at Most Haunted. Okay, and I said we won't talk about that, but that's portrayed very much as the males being very forefrontal and the women being screamy and scared and, you know, fearful. You know, look at Taps, that's male orientated, isn't it? I think they only have one woman on their team now.
Yeah.
Ghost Asylum, I believe, is all male. Bearing in mind, I don't watch these programs. I'm guessing. You know, from what I've seen, they may have changed over series. I don't know, but you know, it's very, very male orientated at this present time.
Yeah, it is. But I still can't get away from the fact there may be more males presenters. You may be seeing more males, but when you look at the females and you look at the males, I think the females are still stronger than the males. I've seen the men freak out more than I've seen the women freak out. And like you said, there are less females, but the women seem to be quite strong women, the ones that are portrayed on TV. The ones we do see.
Well, the thing is, what annoys me actually about that is that we don't see more strong female paranormal investigators. I mean, Carl Hutchinson says, sadly, I feel that some shows go for the eye candy to cater for the young fangirl or boy element.
Yeah.
That's the problem I feel with television. It is being portrayed in an unrealistic way, because most times when I've investigated, the women have been as strong as men. I've been very blessed with people I've investigated with in the past. You know, so for me, it's not a true representation of what actually happens out on a paranormal investigation.
No,
television.
It isn't. No, it isn't.
You know, because you have got those strong women characters out in the field performing. Performing is probably the wrong word. Working in just as strong a way and just as fearless a way as some of the male investigators out there. In some ways, as we've said before, you know, me and Kerry Ann and I, should I say, have been just as strong as the male characters on the team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know your experience of that.
Yeah, it's been the same. I've actually come across women who have been stronger than men in investigations, but I do have to agree with you. When it comes from the TV perspective, there are more men portrayed. Mm-hmm. But in the actual field, it doesn't actually work like that. I have worked with both men and women, but there are a lot of really, really strong women in the paranormal field.
I think you do have to have a very strong mind, a very clinical mind as well. I mean, I work in a very spiritual way when I work in the paranormal environment when I'm out in the field. But I also have that other side to me, which is always questioning, why am I getting that? Why am I feeling that? I'm always looking for that answer. And in my experience, the women I've come across in the field have worked in the same way. You know, not necessarily just going on, yes, I'm getting these feelings, yes, I'm getting that energy, yes, I'm feeling that, but let's explore it more, let's work forward more, let's do that more. And I say I've been incredibly blessed with some of the people that I've worked with that have pushed that field for ladies specifically forwards. Whereas, and again, going back to the male perspective, I've never had a man go, no, I can't back that up with tech, so it's not happening. Do you know what I mean? Again, I've been very blessed that I've not had that experience either. I know that would cause me issues if I wasn't allowed to work in the way that I work in the paranormal field. But I will always look after the investigation to why that was. You know, was that a psychological effect? Was that a way of, why did that, you know, the whys and the wherefores and the psychological and the physiological and, you know, those kind of things, more than I would necessarily go, right, okay, so I got that feeling, but why did I get that feeling? Do you know what I mean? So where did that come from? How did that happen? And most of the women I've worked with work in the same way. So I consider myself incredibly blessed in the field because of, because of the strong women that I've worked with, and males. I'm not discounting the males in this at all, because I've learnt so much from the male contingency in the paranormal field as well. So, you know, I don't think because of my gender, I don't feel I've been disadvantaged or been, you know, put down at all because I'm a woman. But I do feel that that's betrayed.
Yeah, I can understand why you would say that. I can agree with that, with the way it is portrayed. But like you said, that is television.
That is television.
That is television. It isn't the real situation that we normally work in. And when we do work, like yourself, I haven't been, like, as Kerry Ann said as well, I've never been patted on the head or whatever, but it's a very different situation, and I don't know why, I can't explain why on TV it's portrayed differently, but it is a very different situation in the actual field.
It's true.
So,
now, I did actually find a quote from Lorraine Warren, who is very well known in the paranormal field, and she was being asked about the equal footing for men and women in the paranormal, and her response was, no, oh my God, no, honey, there's far from equal footing. Most of the women groups are sticking with the women. They really are. That was said way back, though, in the 70s. Now, I think that has changed.
I don't know. I think, well, personally, from my experience, when I go on investigations, we've always had discussions about how to proceed. And if one person's feeling a certain way, whether it be male or it be female, or I really want to go and do this or whatever, we all back each other up. So maybe it is slightly different now, but personally for me, I feel it's kind of equal. When you're actually investigating, it is equal. I don't feel as if there's only been that one situation where I felt what I was saying was being discounted, which is not bad.
No, that's not bad at all.
It's only one situation, and it's the only situation, and I got proof right at the end of it.
That's true. I mean, as I say, going back to myself personally, I don't feel I've ever been disadvantaged in the field because of my gender. In fact, there have been times where I've been empowered by what a man has brought, and I think that is a very good reflection of today's viewpoint in regards to paranormal investigations. Anyway, we've come to the end of the show, Kaz. That's gone so quick. Unfortunately, we did lose Kerry Ann again because of her internet connection.
Bless her.
But it was lovely to hear her and her viewpoint for a short while. Don't forget, guys, tomorrow night we have a special interview with Eddie Brazil. The Parasearch team went out and spent an amazing afternoon with Eddie and his family, talking Borley Rectory, hauntings, ghosts, just about every subject you could think of. It was an amazing afternoon we spent. So listen to that tomorrow evening. That goes live at 9 p.m. tomorrow. As always, we bring you shows throughout the week, every single night, 9 p.m, all about the paranormal and different aspects to it and different guests. Thank you so much for joining us, Kaz, on tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I have. It's been a really interesting discussion.
It has been an interesting discussion. And on that note, we hope you enjoyed this pop-up show. Don't forget, help us spread the word, share us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will be back with you tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Take care and farewell. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.